Hello, welcome to our podcast, Abstract Curiosity. My name is Rebeka. I'm a 1-3 mental projector, Virgo Sun, Capricorn, Moon, and Rising.
Hey, I'm Michelle McGinnis, and I am a 4-1 emotional generator, Scorpio Sun, Cancer Rising, and Aquarius Moon. We're excited that you're here with us today.
We are so excited that you're here. And I just want to say real quick, we like to introduce ourselves this way so that you know what filter is coming at you. You know what we're about and can maybe help you relate to us in a little different way from that.
I'm glad you
Yeah.
said that. Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because here's the thing. It's like it doesn't make who we are. It isn't like these only quantifiers, because I know a lot of people can get a little sticky about that, but it is this idea that I love how you said it. It's the filter in which we see things. Love it.
Mm-hmm.
That was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Like we just had a conversation right before we got on where I laughed and I was like, "Oh, I'm showing my 1-3-ness right now for sure." So
I already forgot about that. You're right. That's funny. Yes, yes, yes,
so
yes.
it's just fun. But okay. So we were talking about our last episode with Gate 51 and how it's in all these placements, and we were like, "Oh my gosh." And then we started realizing there's more to talk about with this. Like April is big energy. You started having some realizations of ways that we could really support people on deeper information. And anyway, so this is what we're talking about today, and I'm really looking forward to it. So
I am too. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, let's dig in. Let's dig in.
Okay, let's dig in. So, one of the things that became really clear to me, and listen, I always find it very, the synchronicities of, Rebeka and I live in faraway states from one another. I love it when the synchronicities happen and we both come on to record a podcast and we've had some epiphanies throughout the week. And one of my epiphanies was as I've been working with some clients of mine who have gate 51 already in their chart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it hit me that in our last podcast, we didn't really talk a lot about gate 51 in the essence of what center it's in, because the centers of human design give such a beautiful landscape of what the energy is available to all of us or what it's lacking or what's going to hit us. So we thought today we would go through and talk more about the motor center of the ego heart center, because that's where gate 51 is. So let's just remind everybody that the gate 51 comes off of the smallest triangle in your chart. Look at the teeny weeny little one. It's kind of obscure. That's called the ego or the heart center. And we're looking at gate 51, which is popping up towards the G center.
The diamond.
Pull your chart out. Yes.
Yeah.
Towards the diamond. And so pull out your chart to see if you have that ego/heart center colored in or if it's white, because that does make kind of a different impact on how gate 51 is going to feel for you. And then we're going to briefly go over, because Rebeka kind of was doing some deep dives into where Chiron, gate 51, I keep saying Chiron, we're not talking about Chiron today, but where gate 51, what planets are hitting it in April, and it's astronomical in the amounts of things filtering through gate 51. And we wanted to look at it from this perspective. So let's dive in, shall we?
Let's do it.
So think there's a couple of things that for me came out this week, which was the ego heart center itself represents, it's a motor center. So it gives us energy to do things, to carry through on things. It's about managing monies or material possessions. It's about self-worth. It's about self-esteem, obviously, because it's self-worth, and your willpower. That's a lot. To me, the ego center it's a small little area in the chart. Why it's so teeny, I don't know. When Ra created this, but it's a powerhouse. Like that has so much to it. And around 70% of the population has this area undefined or white or open. White and open mean that they're both white. Undefined and open means that it's white. when it's defined, it will have color. It doesn't matter what color the center is. That's a lot to unpack just in that.
It really is. It really is. So I'm glad we're digging into this a little deeper because we did touch on the heart center when we were talking about it last week. Um, but yes, like you said, it's the tiniest center, but it's possibly the biggest energy. There is a lot happening here. And then let's remember too, on a different layer, this is mostly tribal. So the will to work, the
Mm.
drive to work, the drive to provide is is about taking care of yourself and your family. It's about saying, I'll show up and work and do this so that I can rest. I'll do this so that the family will be taken care of. Like there's some kind of bargain that happens inside of there. And so it's important. Like we need that to survive and to keep the family going. But then gate 51 is the only individual one. That's the one where it starts to spark out and be its own thing and start to bring in that competition. Whereas the tribe is it's about taking it's that bargain, and then the 51 is that competition and the shock. The I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna go do this now.
Yeah, of course, I just went off into my own world about because I happen to have Chiron in gate 25, which would make it a full channel. So how some of this stuff is going to be percolating up. So, okay. So let's talk about that in the aspect of competitiveness, right? People with gate 51, if you have it in your channel, you are a competitive person. You are that person that's trying to seek to do something that nobody else has done before. I feel like it's a very adventurous energy about it. And you have the willpower to keep moving forward on things. Like you just have just this innate drive. Like I need to do it, like you were saying, for the tribe, but also for myself, because I want to see how far it can go out. It almost feels to me sometimes like gate 15 in the idea that it really wants to do something that maybe hasn't, it wants to give value
Hmm.
to what it's doing. And to me, it's kind of like a placement where I always see when I work on somebody with gate 51, I always see somebody's foot on the gas pedal because gate 51 wants to put that pressure down of like, how can I do better? How can I be better? How can I bring more material wealth to me? And let's remember, there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's a lot
Mhm.
of spiritual aspects out there where people are always kind of condemning people for making money and doing things. And that's not the truth. And that's what we find out with human design. Like no
Mhm.
other modality is that the possessions, you came here to have those possessions, to have money to live. And right now we do live in a monetary world. Someday we won't. And when we don't, then we don't have to talk about it in that aspect. So I digress. But anyways, and that self-esteem issue. So when you think about those things in a really positive light, let's talk about it in the positive light right now.
Mhm.
Gate 51 is about having a really positive and healthy balance between who you are, what your possessions are, and who you're going to interact with that about that. What do you think about that in a healthy way with gate 51?
Can you say that again for me?
Yeah. So gate 51, like in its positive flow, because it's coming, because we're talking about it as in the motor center and what it represents. So when you think about gate 51 and you're working with the client, what is the essence that you feel about it when we're talking about being competitive and worthy and material possessions and self-esteem?
For me, I always see gate 51 because it has that shock factor. Um, I kind of see it as the defibrillator, where it's like you have to be shocked back into life. You have to be shocked back into
Ah,
where you need to go. Also, Ra has this as his conscious sun gate, and he had that shocking experience of the voice and the light, and that's what brought this system into place. And you can hear it in his words. You can feel it in his presence. Like there's this kind of shock factor. Even the way he labeled everything in human design shocks people and kind of annoys them. Some people are turned off by it. So that's the way that I always experience it. Like it can feel a little abrasive.
mhm.
So that
Yeah.
balance that you were talking about is important, it feels like if you own it, like once you understand that that the shock value is like a major part of Ra's energy, you stop taking him so seriously. You're like, oh, I can just hear the gate 51, like it's fine. And so you have that balance of it. But when you are stuck in the shadow of it and you're thinking, like you were saying, I feel like that's where the gas pedal comes in. And that's what you've been seeing, these people who are like, I have to move forward. I have to have some kind of experience to initiate this. Like they're trying to shock themselves back to life. But like sometimes you need to chill and let the
Mm-hmm.
experience shock you back into life. That's how I perceive it.
I freaking love that shock. Like, yeah, that defibrillator, that's a great expression of it all. So, so of course, this coming into everybody's, and everyone's going to handle this differently and everyone's going to experience it differently. But if you understand the elements that's behind gate 51, as in where does it come from? Obviously, um, it's an Aries sign, gate 51 is, but the whole ego center is not just an Aries sign. It's a Sag, it's a Virg, and it's an Aries. So we've got all three of those energies kind of running inside of the ego center or the heart center. So I would say if you have this area undefined, which is probably most of the people listening to this, um, I think you're going to feel like, who am I and what am I? Am I worthy of these material things and these objects for me? Or you might be somebody who is going to be having an experience that you're realizing it's okay for you to have that defibrillator and reawaken something within inside of you. I feel like because there's so much essence behind the ego center of self identifying as somebody who can have and receive things. Listen, somebody who has this open or undefined can, in their daily living, struggle with from day to day, it looks different about how you perceive yourself. And a lot of the time it has to do with, because I deal with a lot of business women, has to deal with how much value I'm giving in my business or in my home. How much am I receiving back for it? So I think with gate 51 coming off of this, a lot of people are questioning, who am I again? Where should I be going? Like, does my business have value? Does my relationship have value? Because of course, this is just coming off of the eclipse in relationships area. Um, and how do I manage like either wealth coming in or money going out? How does that feel inward for me? And of course, every piece of work that we do together, Rebeka, is always has to do with like this inner work. But
Mhm.
how do I balance that all out? Because now all of a sudden, for all of you who are open, you're going to have a gate in there and it's going to be lit up. But I think we should kind of go into actually all of the signs that this is going to be happening for. But before we do that, obviously, we probably want to talk about if your ego center is defined and you're getting gate 51, like what might that look like? Do you have any
Hmm.
insights on that?
I uh already with a defined heart person, especially if they do have gate 51 as a defined heart, like that's a lot of energy. And so that can be a little abrasive for the people outside of them. And so I wonder with this added to it, it's this is a time, I feel like this is a time for you to understand on an even deeper level, like what is it that you are initiating in this world?
I
That's
like
the
that.
thing that's coming to me because you have this already, but with it being highlighted so much, I feel like this is the opportunity to fine tune it, to really understand it. Like it's yelling at you, this is what needs to happen. So take your hands off the wheel for a second and let it redirect. That's what's coming to me.
I love that. No, and I think that's I think that's beautiful. And that's the essence, I think, of learning more about ourselves, right? Listen, people who have the defined ego center, to me, it's almost like they've got strategy is their game. Like they understand strategies and whatever it is that they believe in, like they kind of get this bigger element of it all. And let's not forget that gate 51, sorry, something's going off my phone. That gate 51 is also, to me, I've seen it as a very creative space. Like the
Mm,
heart center can be extremely creative, and so can gate 51. So I would say people who have this area defined might even find some new creative ways in which they're
mm.
going to be experiencing this energy of the center and then zooming off into a gate, if that makes sense. Let me put this down.
Yes.
Yeah, very cool, right?
Very cool. Very cool. It is interesting. I'm feeling too, like, because I have the undefined heart, you have the open heart. And with all of this, it does feel a little overwhelming to me, honestly. Like with the undefined heart, once this gets defined and it's in the transits in a big way, I I get a little overwhelmed. But it also really cuts out any of the nonsense that I've been trying to do. Like, hey, you've been pretending to be this version of yourself. You don't have energy for that anymore. So that's the cool thing about it. That heart gets defined and it's like, hey, this is what you have the energy for. Stop trying to do this other stuff. That's the wisdom of it. But if for me specifically, it has to like shove me down. It's like,
Mm,
stop moving. Like, I'm going to push you down so that you actually are shocked enough to look at me and realize you're going the wrong way. That's what it feels like.
wow. Flip and love that. Yeah, and doesn't that make sense? Because it's about having a healthy relationship with your drive. Like you were saying that I think
Mhm.
before, just in different words. It's like having a healthy relationship. So if it's undefined or it's open, it's like not getting too caught up in the drama of gate 51 and understanding. And here's the reason why we wanted to do a deep dive on this is because this is hitting everybody. It's just hitting you
Mhm.
in different ways. And when we become the observers of our world is when we step into our own conscious field. We step into the place where we get to co-create whatever it is that we desire. It's that thing that everybody who talks about manifesting is trying to get to, but they kind of skip over some of the parts, which would be when you're feeling in that overwhelm because all of a sudden you have an energy that you don't necessarily have on a consistent basis all the time. All of a sudden you have it, it's going to cause you to possibly look at things differently. So now knowing that this is going to be here, and let's talk about that. It's going to be here from April. Well, it's already here in some aspects, but it's going to get broader. This gate 51. Now we're stepping out of just talking about the ego center. And we're stepping into gate 51 a little bit more, which
Mhm.
is April 8th. And April 8th through basically all of April, there are 8 planets or seven. One's not a planet, but that is going to be walking through the filter of 51.
Yes, it's a lot. So we've had it in the North Node for a while. It's just been hanging out. And then the last episode, we talked about how it's in the Sun, the North Node, the Moon, and Chiron. And that's the day of the solar eclipse. So I am so curious how that day is going to feel. It's it's a lot. And so the gate 51 in the sun that week, and then almost as soon as it leaves the sun, it enters here comes Mercury and Venus. So here's the other thing that we started to notice. Mercury goes retrograde on April 1st. So it's moving its way retrograde, it's going backwards. It enters gate 51 on April 14th. And then once it moves through for a little while, it stations direct and then starts moving its way back through gate 51. So it's in there for about 3 weeks. And again, this is Mercury retrograde. So I'm very curious what kind of messages are going to be coming out. And then for about a week in that, like April 18th through 22nd, I believe, is Venus in gate 51. So during that week, we'll have the North Node, Mercury, Venus, and Chiron all in gate 51. So like Michelle said, this is the filter. When gate 51's in the sun, it's filtered in a certain way. Like it's a lot more loud. It's the sun. And then we have Mercury. That's communication. What kind of shocking messages are going to come through? When it's in Venus, that's all about your values, which let's add is values. It's money and in Venus, and then it's in the heart center. So there might be some deep realization, some shocking shifts for you on money and what it is you value and what's happening in your life. And then, of course, it's all filtered by Chiron and gate 51, which is teaching us all on a deeper subconscious level. So
Okay, I couldn't have wrapped that up any better than what you just said. That was really good. Yeah, you kind of took me on this story and it was like absolutely gorgeous. I love Rebeka's Gate 56. If you don't know what Gate 56 is, go look it up because it's my favorite with people. I don't have it, so I love it. Okay. Yeah, so I love that. So we started off with explaining the center. We talked about gate 51, and now we're talking about all of the transits that are going to be happening. What's going to be filtered through this? Your self-worth is going to be filtering through this area, right? There's also going to be some possible big time agitation. Gate 51, with all these planets coming through it, the filter of it is an Aries sign. So it wants to make movement. It wants to go forward. It wants to be the warrior or the goddess. And it wants to be independent and fierce and say, I'm here. Like, this is who I am. It's that sign of I'm no longer going to take what's been put upon me and I'm going to make a mark for myself. So that's just one level of it all. And then you think about it through the filters of what you were talking about, this fierce energy of saying, because we haven't even talked about the gene keys of it all, but this fierce energy of like working through your insecurities. I really think that's going to be a big theme for people as individuals. Information coming through. And of course, the retrograde just means, the Mercury retrograde just means we have time to reflect. What have I been working on? What is my communication? What is the thing I've been wanting to learn or study? What have I learned and studied? Am I ready to bring it out and bring it forth? Am I ready to be more authentic? Because to me, this is also harboring upon learning to be your authentic self, like you were sharing about your own journey. Like, I don't have to prove my self-worth to anybody anymore. And we all are going to have this energy flooding through us to say, you don't have to agree with me and I don't have to agree with you. I don't have to believe what you say and vice versa. But it's going to give you, I think, a big opportunity to step more into your authentic self, shedding what no longer serves, right? And anchoring a new level of self, because at the very end of all of this, through all of the Venus, North Node, Moon, Sun, Mercury, all of them sifting through it, what is there underground? Chiron. And what do you and I believe about Chiron is that Chiron is that hum of like, are you ready to heal? Are you ready to look at something from a whole new perspective? Are you ready to give yourself some grace? Or are you ready to kind of kick yourself in the ass and say, I'm not sitting idly by anymore. I'm here. It's okay for me to make my mark. It's okay for me to say what I need to say. Chiron's going to push and it'll feel uncomfortable. And when you hit that uncomfortableness of either taking your foot off the gas or putting your foot on the gas, because it's going to be different for all of you. If it feels a little queasy, uncomfortable, like, ooh, I don't normally do it this way, I would say more than that, that could be possibly the Chiron that you're healing in this moment with it. What do you think on that?
When you were just now talking about the gas pedal, it was making me realize like part of the shadow of 51, this initiation, everything we've talked about is you trying to control your process. Again, this is the individual. It's shocking because it's moving out of the tribe and being an individual and saying, I'm not doing this thing. Like, I'm going to go over here and be me and figure out who that is. Right. And so when you have the foot on the gas, you are trying to control how fast the car goes, how slow it goes, any of that. Like you were just talking about, you're putting it down or taking it off. But really, you don't get to control that. That's your mind thinking, oh, if I push the gas pedal harder, I'll get there faster, I'll be richer quicker, and I can control this situation. But you are just exhausting the engine because you don't get to control that. Are you following your strategy and authority, or are you bypassing that? Are you operating out of the truth of who you are, or are you operating out of the not self? Are you thinking if I go faster, then I'll be able to prove my worth? Or are you saying, this is where I'm going because I know that's where I'm meant to go? And so that's what's really coming to me for all of this too, thinking about this 51, and it's filtering through all these different ways. It's about learning to trust yourself, because again, that shock, if we think about the defibrillator, it's something else bringing you back to life. You have to, like, if you keep pushing on the pedal, you're going to exhaust yourself and fall on the ground, and you're going to need somebody else to shock you back into life. Or you can just trust, and and when you move from that trust, you initiate in a healthier, more aligned way.
And it's trusting that inner knowing, right? Because isn't gate
Yes.
51 part of the knowing circuitry? And what is knowing, my friends? It's just what you said: strategy, authority. You got to know those in your human design chart. If you don't know, go learn it, go get a reading from someone, and or understand that knowingness, when it comes to our spidey senses, because that's the spidey sense to me, that's what I call it. It's
Mhm.
your intuition, it's your psychic abilities, whatever you want to call it. And there is an inner knowing. And when you can slow down, because there's going to be a lot of pressure on this gate 51. So if you don't have it, you're going to feel it. You're probably already feeling it. Like, what is it that I need to experience? But the thing that hit me, and I want to ask you, Rebeka, is okay, so we're just talking about 51, but 51 hooks up with 25.
Mhm.
So we're talking about it in the essence of it being a hanging gate. But if it were hook up to 25,
Well, yes,
what
it's
is
funny
the
because
essence?
that was just popping in my head too, because we will have the full channel during this time as well. It's the channel of initiation. And we had that just recently. It's kind of gone away for a second, but then I forget which planet. Anyway, we have this whole channel of initiation. So when we're looking at this together, that 51, that shock moves into the gate 25, which always cracks me up because it's like universal love. And so they just seem so opposite to me. But it's moving to that G center, the love, the direction, the, again, your identity. And so it's initiating you into your identity. So for this, I know for me, the last time it was in the transits, this is when I completely shut down. I had to let go of so many things. There's deep
Mm,
realizations happening, and it was shocking. It also led me to realize how much I was trying to fit some kind of societal mold and ignoring who I was as an individual and not allowing myself. And so that's what it really is, because this is the beginning. It is part of the individual circuitry, the knowing, like you were saying, but it's also on a
mhm,
deeper level, the oh gosh, the word just left me, but it's a separate one where it's about really getting into who you
mhm.
are, like on a deeper level. So that's what I have to say about that.
Well, and I think too, I think that sometimes the agitation that can come with 51, which I think when it hooks up to 25, this makes sense. 51 in its agitation is it can kind of feel like there's just some randomness happening, which we were talking about. Like you can't control how it goes. But gate 25 to me is also about connecting up with a spiritual belief. It's a very
Hmm.
spiritually enticing gate. And spiritual doesn't mean that it's a specific way. It's spiritual, and however that suits you in your life. So if that's spiritual because you are a person of prayer and religion, great. If it's spiritual of you just going inward and connecting with self, great. Whatever that is for you, it's allowing, because 51's reaching up and it says I have to control it. But when it connects with 25, it says there's nothing for you to control. Just go inward, do the inner work, find
Yes.
the joy, find the peace, live in your bliss, not in your forcefulness. Oh, this is coming through from Chiron. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Some of this has to do with, because this is the United States, is Chiron return too on top of it. When we're talking about the humming, is that we've all lived in a place where we had to be fierce in order to survive. We were all raised in that Darwinism, like you have to be the fittest to survive. So 51 really grew out of that to say, I need the material possessions for my family, right? And there is an immaturity to that because it's an Aries, and that immaturity of 51, when it's just hanging, can feel very fierce. It can feel very competitive. It can feel very out of balance. If it doesn't realize that you should letting go of the control and walking up into 25, which we're, again, like you're saying, it's going to be active for all of us, the full channel, means that we have to let go of the control. And when we do that, we become a more mature person because it's hooking up to Pisces, and Pisces is the 12th house. Pisces is the end of the cycle when it comes to astrology, and Aries is the beginning. And so it's walking through all of these cycles. Isn't that interesting? This is just hitting me. It's walking through all of the cycles of astrology, meaning you're starting off quite immature. This is what I want. This is what I need. I'm afraid if I don't have the money and the material things to support myself and my family, then I can't go out and be who I need to really be. I can't trust the spiritual. And we're in a Chiron return right now within all of this, stating to all of us, you need to let go of this fierce competitiveness if it's blowing everybody else out and there's no integrity to it, because you don't have a landing place, which is love and direction. Where are you pulling this beautiful energy into it? How can we all come into harmony and balance and have everything that we need and desire? This is like a big conscious opening that's happening for all of us to heal this. If I don't grab this, somebody else is going to take it from me. And we're all going to be asked to say, listen, sometimes you have to take that foot off the accelerator and go more inward to realize how it is that you're connecting to whatever is bigger than you that you believe in, that gives you everything that you need, which is always pure positive joy, bliss, but most importantly, love, right?
That was so beautiful. And also, it just really hit me all the parallels that we've talked about. Like, this really is the shifting of the age. We're moving out of the Pluto and Capricorn, like the Capricorn building the structures and like the very heart-centered, like proving your worth, work overtime, get the money, go home, like do the thing, right? And then we're moving out of that and into Aquarius, saying, no, we're going to actually take care of ourselves so that we can take care of people. Like, this is more about nurturing. This is more about growth. We're moving into that. And how shocking is that experience to go from, hey, you have to work all the corporate things, to, no, I'm going to stay home and take a nap when I need to so that I can be a healthy human. We're noticing that shift right now, and it is moving us into a more spiritual alignment, Capricorn to Aquarius. Then we also have the cross of planning, which was all about the same thing as Capricorn, planning the structures. And now we're moving into the sleeping phoenix, which, how does that relate to everything you just said? It was just hitting me too. The phoenix has to die so that it can be reborn. And that's what's happening in this shock as well. The structures are dying. They've done a great job. They've done what they needed to do. We needed this time. But now we are killing off the unhealthy aspects of it and rising from the ashes in a more healthy way. There's just so many
Mm.
things shifting to the deep awakening that's happening. And we're moving into a spiritual awakening with this 25, with this 5125. And so I love how you were talking about the 25 and really moving into that. And then with the car analogy too, it's like that 25, that higher expression, that spiritual knowing, that's what's guiding the car. You can keep pushing the pedal if you want, but it's just going to burn out the engine, and it's
Mm.
not even going to do anything because
Right.
25 is guiding the
Mhm.
car.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you think about, I mean, the synchronicities of all this. And then I was thinking, yeah, we just went through a lunar eclipse in Libra, which is all about releasing relationships and forming new ones, that just to prepare us for the solar eclipse that's happening in all of this, by the way. This is all happening through the filter of 51.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I am seeing it. It's been very clear markings of people in business, like really making some big decisions on I'm leaving this, I'm closing the door, I'm opening this, I'm going back to this. Like people are getting clear on what it is that is no longer reaching to that 25, which is your spiritualist. Sometimes I see with 25 though, on the lower frequency of that one is it feels like it can speak about the randomness of spirituality, but it itself sometimes I think falls short of understanding what that oneness is.
Mm,
It wants to teach about it, but for it to take its time to go inward and connect, that's a whole new level with 25. And I think that's what you're talking about, is that people are starting to understand that when the collective does well, when the tribe is doing well and feels its safety and security, it can move more into its own individual aspect without feeling fear. Like you were talking about the Capricorn walking into the Aquarius energy. It's like, you know what? We worked through all this as a group, and now we got to go into our individualism and figure out how it is we can all be happy without doing the things that we don't love anymore.
yeah.
Really interesting. I was on a call with a business group, and there was a lot of people talking about creative people. By the way, these were mainly creative people. And what I mean by creative people is people who are, branching out into businesses or doing things that are unlike anything anybody else has done and been successful financially with it. And the conversation came up about how most of society, and it doesn't matter what energy type you are, but most of society has been about taking the work that's just going to pay the freaking bills.
Yeah.
And it's been so ingrained to us. Now, I think generators and man gens really struggle with, can I really do something that makes me happy? Because I really should probably be pretty miserable as there's no reason for me to do the work. And you as a projector, yours is totally different, right? Like how you perceive like doing corporate work isn't like 9 to 5. Yours looks completely different, right?
Oh my gosh. Well, like I can't even imagine doing it anymore. I shut down just at the thought of applying for one of those jobs.
Yes.
But I
And I
did
think once
it.
you've broken through, yeah, you did it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, for the same reason. I was actually excited. I thought, okay, I'm finally getting a cubicle. I have my name on a thing. I get the 9 to 5. Like I'll be able to take care of my family. And it was so miserable. I remember looking around. We're in this room that had no windows. And there's, I don't know, like 50 or 60 cubicles. And I'm just looking around at everybody. There's one guy who just never leaves his chair. Like, I don't even think he went to the bathroom. And
Wow.
I'm like, none of these people look healthy or happy. What is
Yeah.
happening? And I'm trapped in a room, a windowless room with all these people. I'd never sat at my desk. I was up. I would go walk around the parking lot all the time. I just, I couldn't do it. I
And
couldn't
that's
do
the
it.
thing is that, yeah, like all the energy types are, I think we're all having this awakening. And I think 2020 helped us like, oh, wait a minute, there could be a different world, right? As
Mm.
uncomfortable as it was for all of us. But now people are like, had to go back. And now people are like, wait a minute, I just can't do this anymore. But how do I work through my money factors and my money fears and understand how to do this for myself? And that's the energy that's available to you all. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm feeling like, don't feel cowardly about this. Don't feel that you're less than. The minute you do that, just realize you're not playing in the high frequency of 51, and you're going to experience that. Rebeka and I will experience this again because we don't have gate 51 in our charts, right? So we're
Mhm.
going to have to be mindful, and we have one another. So when we're feeling that self-worth, you need to reach out to other people who will build you back up. They won't blow smoke up your hiney, but they'll hold you up to what you are good at. There'll be this authentic conversation that pops you out. And that's what I think all of us need to do. My phone has been ringing off the hook this week for people I've worked with in the past that all of a sudden they're like, I don't know what's happening. I'm like, well, I do know what's happening. Let's take a look at your chart. Give me a call, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and and I think that that's just evidence of what's happening. because prior to the eclipse, I wasn't getting that information. It has been a sandstorm like, or the opposite, people who have this and have learned to manage it really well, they're telling me the success levels that they're having. So it's
Yeah.
all available to us. But when you're feeling low the month of April, I really want people to pause and say, wait a minute. I know that there's a lot going into it. Let me just go back, listen to this podcast, go talk to somebody who understands this to a deeper level, and give yourself some flipping grace and love and understanding that agitation is normal right now. It's because you're going through a growth spurt. You're going through a healing.
Yes, growth
Make
spurts are
sense?
never that
Yeah.
comfortable. And so that I love you called out that agitation, and that reminded me whenever you feel that agitation, remember it's pointing to initiation. It's initiating you into something. And that 25 self-love, like universal love, you are love. It's initiating you into love. That's what's happening. The only reason
Mm,
you're stuck in the agitation and you're feeling frustrated by it is because you're not surrendering to love. You're not allowing yourself to be love. And everything you were just saying about like really understanding who you are, that's what I've been going through. And like I have insecurities about being a 1-3 mental projector. Like I don't fit in anywhere, but it's like friends like you and all of a sudden through this initiation, I'm starting to hear more people say, gosh, I just really appreciate that you do X, Y, and Z. Whereas before that felt like a big, terrible thing that I would do. Like, oh, I'm just boring. No, like this is nothing. But I'm hearing people actually appreciate it and realizing it's okay. Like I can
yeah.
be myself, and that is valuable. But first, I have to stop trying to be a
Mm,
shiny generator because as much as I would love to be the life of the party, I'm just not. That's not my role.
right. And we can appreciate the role. That's so interesting you said that, because I think just like rounding this whole thing up would be, I was listening to Lars Muir. I don't remember how to say his first name. He's a deep spiritualist, and I loved it because he was talking about things that I think you and I have really resonated with, and that's why we got into human design and astrology. Was we no longer are living in an age where we can't do or be anything, literally.
Hmm.
Like we're in the age of Aquarius. There's freedom. There's so much growth in what human beings can be like. There's so much breaking of the boxes of you have to be this way or that way in order to be happy and safe. But knowing that that information is available to us at the drop of a hat. And we talked about this in the last Gate 51 podcast, but the next level is the only thing, the biggest adventure you have within yourself is to know thyself. It
Mm.
is the oldest verbiage, but the truth of it is we literally still don't know who we are. We still don't know like where we came from. We don't understand the ideas of the galactics and understanding the light beings and where we actually stem from. We understand it in earthly terms somewhat. We've got some technology, but more importantly, the blueprint of you yourself. Human design and astrology, I believe, are on their way to grow into exponential new areas of learning. Like, I think we've all learned it as much as we could with what we understood. But now that we're all starting to lean out of the box about ourselves, this is the new adventure. This is why understanding your human design, understanding your astrology, one or the other, or both, like we have done, becomes the key. Because when you learn your own blueprint, then the information that people share about what's happening in the transits, then you can use it for the highest good of yourself because you understand
Mhm.
yourself at such a depth. And I am in my 50s. My friends, I'm still learning more about myself through my chart. It doesn't end, but it gives me this freedom to grow and expand everything. My relationships. My relationship with my husband is probably the best it's ever been. And people who've
Mm.
known me for years would laugh at that, right? My relationship with myself and my body is changing right now. And I know you're experiencing that too. Does that make sense? Like, this is why we're doing what we're doing. we're
Yeah,
we're on a new frontier, right?
totally. Totally. I feel like just five
Yeah,
years ago, what you and I are doing couldn't have been possible. Just 5 years ago.
totally agree.
There's so much
Totally agree.
shifting.
So much shifting.
It's exciting and scary, but like you can see again the initiation, the move into love. Like this really is happening, and I think this is what what part of what Rob was really talking about with no choice. It's not really that we don't have a choice. It's like we don't have we have no choice on where the planets are and how these transits are showing up, but we have a choice in how we interact with them and how we
Yes.
choose love for ourselves and to observe the lessons happening and to take our foot off the gas and instead like look out the window and enjoy the view and
Truly, because
that's
it'll bring it to you, right? Yeah, it's brought
mhm.
to you. You don't have to work so hard. Love
Yeah, which that might have to be the topic of a future episode, not working so hard and the money thing, because I feel like that's something that collectively we are unpacking because we have been so ingrained in the Capricorn cross of planning, prove your worth kind of energy. And we're moving out of that. So it's new to all of us.
it. It is new to all of us. And yeah, totally agree. I love it. And I guess I kind of just want to end the episode of just saying something that maybe it'll be our saying at the end of everyone. There's a beautiful author, Cynthia Sue Larson. She's written some incredible books. She's a quantum physicist. And she always says, how good can it get? And I've loved her statement on that. And so I guess I just want to say, how good can it get with Gate 51 and the full channel 2551 for you?
Mm,
Be mindful, be intrigued, get curious, right? It's what we're about,
hmm
curiosity.
hmm
Get curious with us. And let's move through April and report back and see how it all went for us as a collective and ourselves as individuals.
Whew, that'll be interesting. Thank you.
It will be.
Yes. Love y'all.